Yes, good morning.
Okay, it is 8:32. This is the regular meeting of the Town of Canaan Board of Selectmen on Tuesday, June 23rd. I have one item to add to the agenda. A late-breaking renewal agreement from the police department for software they need to operate. And I move we add this to the agenda. It really can go anywhere, but do I have a second?
Second here.
All in favor of adding this to the agenda? That's unanimous, Tom. Okay. First item on the agenda is the minutes of our last regular meeting on June 16th. This is a additional meeting this fiscal year, so today. Any comments on the corrections? Not comments, corrections on the minutes from last meeting?
None here.
Not here.
I move we approve the minutes for the June 16th, 2020 meeting as presented. Kit seconds, Tom, and all in favor? Aye. So the minutes are accepted and approved. Public comments. Members of the public are welcome to provide comments to the Board of Selectmen on agenda topics scheduled for review and or vote. Comments should be sent by email. This is still a virtual meeting under the governor's orders for virtual meetings, and comments will be accepted by emailing BOS distribution, all one word, at newcanaanct.gov. We'll be checking our phones, and if comments are received, we'll read them. I don't know that we have any comments by email today. Do you have any comments that you've received?
Not a comment, but we did receive that email about masks. Maybe we should discuss it at the end.
This is from the New York resident, Kit?
Yes.
Yeah.
I thought it was a very powerful email.
I replied to him last night, and he I can read his response, but we get a lot of emails. But you know, comments on the agenda are what people are items on the agenda. So anyway, if we get any comments, we'll read them. I therefore would move on to the next item, which is the appointment of Bethany Zaro as Director of Human Services. Cheryl, would you present this?
Good morning. As most of you know, Bethany has been with the town of New Canaan for 13 years. She became our interim director December 12th of 19. Over these last 13 years, she has been a public health nurse, a senior outreach worker, an assistant director, and now our interim director. I would like to recommend that we bring her on as our full-time human services director. Any questions?
Second.
I mean, what she's done just in the last 3 months or 4 months alone is amazing. It's it's almost shocking to remember that she's an interim director as of now, and you know we're going to change that. But she's done a terrific job. Thank heavens for Bethany.
I agree.
I agree with that, and I think everyone feels that way. She's done a terrific job in a very difficult time, and we really did an outstanding job supporting seniors, especially. So I move we approve the request to appoint Bethany as Director of Human Services.
I second that.
Further the discussion? All in favor? Okay, that's unanimous. Thank you, Cheryl. Chris Kaiser. Back in March, we realized that the emergency alcohol service we've been using for the past decade is not performing well. So we started a process about 5 or 6 weeks ago to look for a replacement. And Chris Kaiser and our technology advisory committee has been working on this, interviewing the 2 most likely prospects. This is sort of Pepsi and Coke in terms of who's out there to provide a national service like this. And As you know, we've had consistent glitches with the current service we have, and so we're anxious to get on with this and convert. This is used primarily by the Emergency Operations Center during emergencies, but also by CERT and also by the police department on occasion. And it's an essential service we have. So Chris, why don't you summarize your recommendation?
Good morning. So we went out, we looked at our current vendor and see if there was anything they could do to resolve their issues. Even they had come back and said not at this time. They're still working the bugs out. So we interviewed the other two.
Hey, Chris,
Yes.
sorry to interrupt. What were the issues specifically?
First off, it was, and this was, I don't know why it happened, but it was to subscribe and unsubscribe. And end users or residents were having the hardest time doing this. And it started out because of their parameters on the page they set up, we don't have any control over, was wrong. So it took a week just to get them to figure out that they had put the wrong verbiage in there. They missed a couple of front slashes, they missed a couple of periods. So the link never worked. So once we worked that all out, then it was more of a, people would try to unsubscribe, but it wouldn't give them back the email message. Or when they tried to subscribe, the message would be blocked. So they never really filled out all the forms and followed through with how to subscribe or unsubscribe. They came back, told us maybe if we put some verbiage up on the login page, then it would help. We did that. It still didn't resolve the issue. And then it went into as you guys know, when you hear it, it skips. So when the recording comes on, it goes twice.
Right.
And that's an extremely annoying situation to have with a lot of people that are actually listening to the message. And we get the feedback immediately right after that. It's, what's wrong with the system? And that's the thing they really can't fix. They're not sure why it's happening. So then we went out with TAC and with Jeff Platt and Paul Purica and myself, and we interviewed the other two companies and made sure that none of this was an issue with them. Talked to some of their customers. They never have experienced that issue. So then it came down to access and ease of subscribing and unsubscribing for the end users as well. Because they all comparable, they do the same thing for the most part. One thing Code Red did say though to us was that they were primarily more of a messaging service, period. They wouldn't have any new changes until 2021, meaning Everbridge already has what we're looking to do. They will do multiple, what they call tiers. So you'll have CERT can send just to CERT or send to everyone. Public Works will be able to send out. HR for internal use will be able to do this. All the different departments will now be able to email and text from this system and service. And they've actually built it so that it will work that way very nicely. Code Red, on the other hand, they can't do it, but they will be able to in 2021 is what they're saying. We're not ready we can't wait for that, that's all. And Everbridge came in, they're all right around comparable price. So the budget stays the same, but actually they came in lower by about $600 in annual cost and unlimited. So there's no extra charges for anything that we really don't need right now. And their customers are extremely happy with them. Yes, Kit?
So what is the overall cost? I couldn't find it on my iPad.
Sorry. Yeah, I just started to get all the stuff last night. It is $7,980 annual. And this year there's a $600 installation. Obviously that's our migration from our old system, plus the training. We are paying currently $8,750. And the other vendor was right around $8,400. So it actually lessens the budget for that. The nice thing about this product is it also comes along free of charge, which is called CT Alert, which is another messaging system for the entire state of Connecticut. We get all free training for that. And the expert, as they put it, for CT Alert will come down here and train us on all that. And the nice thing about that is it's the same system as the Everbridge system we're going to use for local. So our training is going to be top notch. So we should be able to use this for tax payments, parking, any kind of information we're looking for, plus emergency services. It has all of the geo-fencing or geo coordinations in it. The database is nice. There is a one for one in. So if, for instance, you sign up, but you also inadvertently sign up and say, I'm a resident and I'm a CERT member, it actually does the deduplication. So it'd say, Kit's only go, Kit here is her username and profile, but she's part of the different tiers, not, whereas our current system would allow you to actually put yourself in 3 or 4 times. And that we've been running into as a huge bug, because people that want out say, listen, I got out, but they don't realize that they signed up 3 different ways.
So 2 years ago, 2 years ago, when we were looking to renew our current vendor and they were charging us $15,000 a year, I just asked the question, and Chris went out and checked the market and discovered that they were twice as much almost as the competition. So Chris talked to them and they said, oh, you want a lower rate. So they negotiated down to the rate of the competitors. And they have an old product that they don't appear to maintain very well. So Mike Handler was totally on board with moving away from them. And the Technology Advisory Committee has interviewed the fire department, the police department, EMS, and CERT. And so Chris is satisfied, meets all the needs of the users. And this is also in conjunction with, we're trying to get all electronic so that we can begin to allow our residents to do everything electronically, whether it's renewing parking permits or renewing transfer station permits. So the other thing is, with the current vendor, we only had 3,000 email addresses, even though we have 8,000 email addresses in our constant contact system from people we currently deal with in various capacities, whether it's recreation department or parking department, et cetera. So we really, plus the darn system would call you at 3 o'clock in the morning. So I had a lot of glitches, and it was we need to move on. And now that we have a selection, quite honestly, most of our neighbors in the neighboring towns use Code Red. To me, it's Coke and Pepsi. And what I like about this one is they're Silicon Valley based, and things in Silicon Valley are top notch. They have a very good interface with social media. So it's much easier to use than what we currently have. I think Code Red is, with the new management team, enhancing their product. But this, Chris recommends we go with Everbridge. And
yeah, they've got a better branding solution, so it doesn't look so Code Reddish, choppy. And they're fixing that as well. But this has already been done, so it'll look like it's a New Canaan alert. It'll look like it's, people know what it's coming from. They won't be confused. And is this true or is this not? Kind of a false negative, false positive. And they're very, very easy to work with. Administratively, like Kevin just pointed out too, we don't have to do this double dip or double work where we have to send out with social media. The links are already there. They're connected to them. And once we send out a message, it will do all the social media at the same time. So it's getting a lot more smoother administratively.
Good.
So their contract, which is actually a standard contract, you don't get to negotiate this much, is still out for legal review with Doug Lamonte. But I propose we make this change and approve a contract with Everbridge at about $8,000 a year, as Chris described.
Second.
Discussion further?
Not here.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Okay, thank you. And then Tiger, we have the tree warden report or request. You're on mute, Tiger.
Sorry about that. Yes, we went out for bid. This is for work in Bristow Park in association with the master plan that was approved and the funding that was just recently approved by the Board of Finance and the Town Council. We received 2 bids, Mill River at $10,218 and Hutchinson Tree at $17,250. So we'd like to go with Mill River at $10,218. This has been reviewed by the Conservation Commission, Chris Shipper, the designer, Keith Simpson Associates, and the tree warden. They all walked the site together. So we'd like to award the contract to Mill River and move forward.
So already we're getting a lot more birds at Bristow, since we have people feeding them and also keeping the deer out. So I move we approve this request to enter into a contract with Mill River Tree Service for $10,218 for tree pruning and removal at Bristow Bird Sanctuary and Wildlife Preserve.
Second year. Second.
Discussion?
No.
All in favor?
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Who's got scrap? John presenting on
Donnie.
this?
Yes, this is a 2-year contract for the removal of scrap metal for the town. We received 2 bids, and basically Rubino Brothers guarantees us $110 a ton, where LaJoy's guaranteed us 0. So we're asking to enter in a 2-year contract with Rubino Brothers for the removal of the scrap metal. Any questions?
245 tons. Yeah. Any questions? Kip?
Just one. How many people did we go out to bid with?
We just published it, and it's just 2 kind of, these are the same 2 that have been doing it for the last 20 years. Nobody else. Everybody else is up in New Haven or further out.
Great.
Any questions, Nick?
Not here.
I move we approve a request from DPW to enter into a 2-year contract with Rubino Brothers for hauling and disposal of scrap metal at an annual income estimated to be about $27,000. Annual income, annual cost. Okay, anyway. Second?
Income.
I don't know who's,
Oh, they're going to pay us.
They're going to pay us. Yes.
That's why we went with the 110 versus the 0.
I got it. Now I understand why you're saying annual income. Okay, they're going to pay us for the scrap metal. I heard a second. Who is this? Kit seconded in time. All in favor? Aye. Okay, thank you, Don. We have another one? Construction?
Yes, we do. This is for the hauling and disposal of brush and construction material from the transfer station. We received 4 bids, and the high bid was 167 and the low bid was 137. So I recommend going with City Carting for the low bid of 137 for the disposal of CD and brush.
Hey, Donnie, why the big increase?
For the they all have bigger overhead. The one we used to have was charging $69 a ton with no haul. But now they're all starting to add hauls in because of just cost of everything. But actually City Carting has dropped their tip fee down to 45 and their haul fee down to 175. So they're all pretty close in price for that. Why the overage on some of the things? I don't know. Some of them are like 110 for the CD and the other ones are pretty close, 85 and 83. So we're all pretty close to each other. Why the increase? The hauling, some of them are going all the way to Ohio with the construction material. Yeah, it's cheaper out there than it is here, but there's still fuel they got to take in consideration.
Right.
Good.
how come City Carting, who would not even return our call, is now giving us the lowest bids?
Because they want back in. They know they made a mistake.
Good.
It's the management that's the problem. Actually, the people that I deal with, it's not their fault. It's the ones above them that have caused major issues. So they're trying to get back into the good side of things.
The people up top are trying to get in, or the lower people?
The lower guys are trying to make up for what the people up top did, basically, just by ignoring us.
Okay, if there's no further questions, I move we approve a request from DPW to enter into a contract with City Carting of Stamford for an estimated $137,400 per year for the hauling and disposal of construction, demolition, debris, and brush yard waste. Do I have a second?
Second here.
Further discussion? All in favor? Okay, now recycling down.
Now we go back to the bad side of the City Carting without the contract, that we have 3 more bills that we have to pay to finish that side of the whole deal off with them for the amount of $64,858.46.
I gather we don't have a lot of choice here.
Pretty much no.
I move we approve a request from DPW to enter into to pay, not to enter into contract, to pay City Carting invoices totaling $64,858.46 for recycling services. Have a second?
Second.
I have no discussion. Do you? All in favor?
Do we typically vote on payment of invoices?
There was no contract.
Right.
We're the
Okay.
we're the purchasing agent, so we gotta
Yeah.
pay for services we receive.
But,
So
no, Donnie just said it. There was no contract.
Right, this was when we were still out to bid, but we still had to get the recycling out, so.
Right.
Okay. That was unanimous, I guess? Yes?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Fire, actually, why don't we stick in here? I don't see anybody on from the police department. Jennifer sent this over yesterday. The contract renews on July 1. It's an integral part of the police department's operating software. So if you are comfortable, Tom, do we have any?
No, I could speak to that briefly. Andy Walsh had a conflict this morning. It's a normal contract. It's for all their software that they handle throughout the police department. It's about the same amount as last year. We could put it off 2 weeks and have Andy come in, but you know, it's a normal thing we do every year.
Okay, everybody in favor of doing the normal thing?
Is that a motion? Let's just do I move we do the normal thing.
I move we approve a request from the police department to enter into an agreement with Nextel Solutions LLC for $21,750 for annual software maintenance fees, which is the normal thing.
I second the normal thing.
All in favor? All right, thank you. All right, now we'll move on to fire alarm system. Who's doing this, Tiger?
That'd be me.
That'd be Bill.
Bill?
Good morning, everybody. We have funds approved for July 1 for some projects here, and this will be one of them. The fire alarm system at the highway department is it's old, it's obsolete, and the detectors are required to be changed. They only have a certain amount of shelf life. So we'd like to contract with Security Solution, who is our current vendor who does all our security throughout town, to install the new panel and new system and to continue monitoring it. $14,469. I asked for a contingency of $2,170 because most of these detectors are all up in the ceiling and what have you, wires, and just in case some of our little pesky friends got up there and ate some of the wires, we're going to need to do some rewiring. So I want to make sure there's a little bit of money there to cover if we have to do any of those types of repairs.
Questions for Bill?
So Billy, this is in the budget?
Yes, sir.
This year's budget?
It's starting July 1st,
Right.
July 1st budget. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Hearing no questions, I move we approve a request from DPW to enter into a contract with Security Solutions for a total of $16,639, which includes a contingency to supply and install a new fire panel and detectors at the highway department. Is this the highway garage in particular?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Second?
Second here.
Further discussion? All in favor? Unanimous, Tom? Preventive maintenance.
All right, preventive maintenance. These are the smaller annual contracts for all the PM work in various town buildings. These all, some are proprietary, some are not. They all came in quoted are under $10,000, and I was using our new purchasing policy, which I know your folks are going to be reviewing today, to help me guide me through this. The only one that exceeds the 10,000 is for the security solution at 30,915. It's our proprietary equipment, and they have all their mesh systems in all our buildings to do all the monitoring. So we'd like to keep them obviously on board. So we'd like approval to get these vendor contracts approved. This will be all beginning July 1 of 2020. And the only ones I did, just so you know, I did leave off was the boiler service. I'm going to come back to you with a later one on that one, only because we are doing a lot of conversion to gas and what have you. So it's kind of a moving target. So I got to kind of work my way through that, find out who I can get to do what, because when we convert to gas, I'm going to have a different vendor. And without creating any kind of contract conflicts, I just left that off for the moment. We'll come back to that. And I got time to get back to that. We clean around October anyhow.
Are these one-year contracts?
These will be for 1 year, yes, every year. These are the ones we'll renew annually.
Any further questions?
And could you just review again in terms of, you said some of these were bid, some of them were not?
Well, these are just, we use the new purchasing policy, but most of these vendors if not all of them, have already been serviced in town for many years, a couple of new ones. And under the purchasing policy, we have our $10,000 threshold before we have to start going out and get collective quotes. Most of these are very small, $4,000, $5,000. Couple, the proprietary ones I have no control over. Those are for like elevators, and you have to have the manufacturer do those. So we just we just talked to our vendors, and some of them kept the numbers flat. Actually, they didn't change them from last year. They've been holding them because they want to continue doing business with the town.
Anything further? I'll move this that we request from the DPW to enter into various preventive maintenance contracts totaling $131.42, plus a contingency of $10,000 for things like elevators, audio-visual, fire systems, fire extinguishers, and sewer pumps. Do I have a second?
Second here.
Further discussion? All in favor?
I would just say that I'll vote yes, but I'm unhappy that we're already using a policy that hasn't been approved. So,
I'm unhappy?
yeah.
Okay,
Well,
well,
I said I would vote for it, but I don't think it's really appropriate to be going under guidelines that haven't been approved.
Those guidelines, for most part, haven't changed from the old policy for some of these thresholds. A couple have exceeded, but those are proprietary ones. And I was trying to, find a good instrument to use going forward. And there's been a discussion. We've been discussing this policy for several months now. I know it's finally made it to your way, but it made it through a lot of the process and through committees already. And I know you folks have the last vote on it, but I, in good faith, are trying to use something that we're going to be going forward, hopefully, with.
I think we're ready, Kit, to approve this policy. It has been months in the works and a lot of eyeballs on it, so.
Well, I said I would vote in favor of this motion,
Okay.
but as a policy, I don't think it's a great idea.
Okay. All in favor? Okay. And finally, cleaning services. Or actually, Bill, you've got the boiler too. Cleaning services.
Yeah, so the cleaning services, this is going to be for the COVA-related cleaning, disinfectant only. I wanted to have a contract in place. Our friends down at the federal government for FEMA, when I filed, they like to see contracts. They want to make sure that it had some type of approval process. When we first started, it's one thing, but now that this is going to continue on, I'm sure they're going to want us to use our procurement and our policy as much as possible. It just helps speed things along for getting reimbursement. The fairly simple contract, the same one that we normally would use on all our projects. This one has a lot of wiggle room in it as far as we could cancel locations as need be, add some locations, and we're going to follow the direction of the DCC and our health department if we have to step up cleaning or if we can back down. And God willing, this will just be a short-term thing. We'll be out of this mess soon. Any questions or?
I have no questions. Nick or Kit, do you have questions?
None here.
Hopefully these will be reimbursed by FEMA and the Connecticut funds that are sitting there. So
Yeah,
they
should be, and I'm actually in the process of actually filling out all that application, and I am entering all the cleaning stuff as we speak.
I know we're going to talk about the financial update, it's agenda item, but what is the COVID-19 account as of today?
Linda, we spent about $240,000 on the town side in terms of Linda. And the Board of Ed has spent 160.
Sorry, I missed that. What was the question? I was getting my pen.
The COVID account, how much have we spent and contracted for it through June 30th?
On the town side, so far, all expenses were at about $222,000 as of June 19th.
And the Board of Ed?
Board of Ed is just at 275, I believe, year to date.
That's $500,000.
Yeah, we were projecting, when we turned our information to the state, we were projecting that by June 30th, we would be between the board and the town at about $500,000 by June 30th.
I think I shared with you a report that the state issued about, there was a total of $40 million claimed from all the cities and towns through June. But what the state has done, even though they received $1.3 billion from the federal government for COVID expenses, they are making us go to FEMA first because they want to use that pot up at 75% coverage, and then they will make up the other 25%. So we're pretty confident we're going to get paid. Massachusetts is releasing their federal dollars up front. It's kind of disappointing to have to go through the FEMA rigmarole, but we expect to get all the FEMA reimbursements back.
Right. One of the things that the state is doing by going through FEMA is because FEMA filters what's eligible, what's not. And therefore, once they've determined what's eligible, then the state will go off of that eligibility list and do the 25%, so they don't have to do the filtering. So they're letting FEMA do the filtering and what makes it through, and correct me if I'm wrong, Bill, and then what makes it through, then they'll do the 25% of eligible.
Right. You know, when you look at the process, if it works, it's not too bad because I'm filling out one application for FEMA. It may be multiple layers, but it's one application. Once FEMA approves that, we'll take that documentation to the state and say, okay, this is FEMA pay us the other 25%. So hopefully it won't require a whole lot of paperwork on the state side other than just forwarding what FEMA says. So, and I'm hearing that they're expediting it fairly quickly. And I'm planning on releasing the first application on July, for end of June 30th, because of the contractual changes in labor salaries and what have you. So we'll put in for the first reimbursement request from, I think it's starting January through June 30th. And then we'll continue doing an ongoing application for the next phase, which they have not put an end date yet. So we'll keep documenting and sending in, whether it be quarterly or if we do the next one at the end of the year, I'll work along on that. We'll see where we are on funding. And I've been working with the Board of Ed, and it's been we've been working really good together on this. Joanne and her staff over there have been great, and we're getting through this. As you can imagine, it's a little different on the Board of Ed side on how they their expenses, what have you, but we figured it out, and IT's been great too, helping us set up platforms on the cloud to share.
So we've got $500,000 for 19 to 20 fiscal year, which is going to end in a week. What's the projection for COVID-19 expenses for the 2021?
You know, that's a good question. Because the problem you're looking at is we don't know what the fall's going to bring. If this thing comes around and it rears its ugly head again, I don't know. I know we are preparing, and we seem to be in a really good place right at the moment with supplies and what have you from what I'm seeing on the paperwork side. I've been working with our EMT folks, and we're helping them store some PPE equipment, and they're trying to build a little stockpile there. A lot of it's coming down from the state. So New Canaan should be in a really good position come fall should we need all that equipment. You know, like I said, the feds have not put an end date on this yet, so it's ongoing. It's a little new, you know, because we never did it like this before. The feds never did it as an ongoing event. They always had a start and a stop date. But we'll just keep applying and hope for the best. They do cover our overtime and stuff that's related. So you know, it's not just materials and masks that they're paying for. There's a lot of other things that they're picking up for too. And also on the care side too, the feeding of the families are covering uninsured people who are being tested. So there's a lot of other things in there that they're covering, which is kind of new because we never faced a pandemic like this before with the assistance from the feds helping pay for it. So far it's been pretty good.
Right. Hey, Lunda, on the Board of Ed side, would we expect, assuming we have a continuation of COVID-19 and perhaps another spike, would we expect that number to go down because some of the costs that were expended to set up the virtual education system have, you know, they're embedded now and we don't have to reinvent the wheel, or we're not? What's the thought process there?
Some of those costs are, But that was the reason why, the Board of Finance approved that 400,000
Right.
non-lapsing fund. But some of the things that they're seeing, one is not clear on the regulations, but they're seeing things like limiting the number of students on buses, which may lead to some additional bus expenses. They're also asking for monitors on buses, and there's a new monitor to student ratio, which may also impact those types of things. Getting things like restrooms, having the restrooms done for students. Are they going to have that plastic coverings like you see at airports and those types of things? So they have a lot of unknowns and not quite sure what the new requirements are. But so far they believe that at least that 400,000 that they requested should cover and be reimbursable. And so that's really the only number that we have to go by. I don't know if Kevin, you've heard anything else, but that's been the discussions that we have. And we were on the call with Bill, Dr. Keating, and their budget director, Tracy, last week to discuss this and kind of watch what.
One good thing, sorry, is that all the school districts in Connecticut and probably the surrounding area, we're all kind of working together to have a standard of what you're trying to set so that they're all on the same page, which would be really helpful as we go forward and looking for funding for that or reimbursement for that. And there's also other grants out there, educational grants that help offset some of this stuff like distant learning, which they apply for first. They already received one for approximately $90-something thousand, which you have to share with some of the private school district, not a whole lot, but it did help offset some of this stuff. So there are educational grants out there that are kind of changing seems like they're changing their requirements a little bit to help adjust for the changing times. So that money is still available to go a little bit further. So.
And I know this is in our ballpark, it's Board of Ed, but I just from a fiscal perspective, Lunda, remind me, is with respect to the bus option, using the bus, is it opt-in or opt-out? I don't recall. For the students. So in other words, you say, affirmatively, I want to ride the bus,
right? Or,
the alternative.
It's opt-out. So everyone is in unless a family chooses not to. So it's I believe that makes it an opt-out option because everybody's opted in by default.
So is the Board of Ed considering changing that given the circumstances of COVID-19 and the implication is probably that the preference is not to ride the bus, even right. Where you're taking precautions, dictated by state or federal. Well, I don't know. I'm just. It's just funny question. That we may be spending more on. I think what I'm hearing from you is we may be spending more on buses, or the Board of Ed will be spending more on buses potentially this year. The year starting in September. Where we had no buses running in March, April, May, June.
Right, and this was a subject, the busing opt-in and opt-out at one of the Advertiser Coffee, I believe, a couple months ago or so, and I think Deanna Carlson kind of explained the rationale why they opt-in versus opt-out, and many parents prefer to have that flexibility. If there is that one time where they can't get a kid home or a kid has to stay late, they are already on the bus. But you're right, that's a good point, if that's maybe something worth revisiting now. But it does add to that cost, especially when you're talking about the ratios of kids on a bus.
And I did hear that they're going to be cleaning the buses in between, drops or schools or however they do it. And there was some concern that I've been hearing that depending on, I guess, the state on what their directive is on using the buses, will there be enough buses throughout the state? If you think about it, right, all of a sudden now you have a big demand for twice as many buses, can they meet that demand? That's what you're trying to get through. So that's why they're discussing a lot of extra cleaning on the buses, and I'm sure they're going to come up with some other stuff before September that we'll be hearing about fairly soon.
Thank you.
So I move that we approve a request from the DPW to enter into a contract with Mann Pro for $78,355 for COVID disinfecting cleaning services for 135 days for town buildings, 100 days for seasonal buildings. expecting this to be reimbursed by federal dollars. Second,
Second.
any further discussion? All in favor? That's unanimous. Kit, right. Okay. Bill, Lapham boiler.
Yeah, the Lapham Center boiler project, we got a little delayed because of the COVID thing by about a month, but we're okay. So we did get the documents drafted up from our engineers. We went out to bid, received a few bids back, I think 3 or 4 bids, to be honest with you. 3. And then Radic Combustion came in at the low bid at $178,855. And also Connecticut Temperature Control, who's our current build BMS management systems that we have in Town Hall and at Lapham currently. We need to upgrade that system to meet the new systems. So that came in at $46,674. So with contingencies, our request is for $248,081. This will be a redundant system up there, by the way. That big boiler that was 3 times too big will be removed, and we're putting 2 smaller units so that we can have better cost control on efficiencies and also for redundancy. So should one go down, we still have heat in the building. We don't have to start scrambling to keep it from freezing.
Thank you. Okay. It's going to be a short meeting. So.
And this will be a dual fuel system we're putting into, so that hopefully in the future, as we move towards getting more gas in the locations, we could just, it'll be all set ready to go to gas, convert it right over, minimal cost.
Question, did we used to see the other bids on situations like this on our tablets anyway?
I think I just sent you the spreadsheet. I don't know what Tom puts on. Actually, I sent a lot of stuff over. I don't see what they put on your tablets.
Typically, we just get listed out the all the respondents and their numbers, and then go from there. Sometimes we give you the low bid contract, but we normally don't give you everyone.
Well, no, but just, you know, a review of them. And they didn't make it to our tablets for one reason or another.
I usually summarize everything on a spreadsheet. The documents are huge, obviously. So I just summarize in a spreadsheet, and I really just take the bid sheets that we kind of go to a custom of having a standardized, at least I did, standardized bid sheet so that all the information is consistently the same. Try to go from one project to another, and it breaks it all down. So I try to incorporate that right into a spreadsheet by copying over, and then it also assists us with either planning a budget or putting requests in for, you know, bonding, what have you. It kind of breaks it all down.
Well, just for complete information, it would be great to see that spreadsheet going forward.
That'd be Tom, I guess I have to put it on their tablets.
Well, we put up whatever you give us.
You get it.
Okay, I move we approve a request from DPW to enter into contracts with Radic Combustion and Connecticut Temperature Controls for the removal of the current boiler and pumps, installation of a new redundant heating system and a new management control system. And those both include contingencies for a total project of $248,081. Do I have a second?
Second here.
Further discussion? All in favor? That's unanimous, Tom.
Thank you.
Tiger?
Weaveny? Maria will handle this one.
Yes, good morning. We would like to retain the services of both Richter and Segan and McCord Engineering Associates to prepare final engineering design services and ultimately construction documents for the Waveney Water Tank access road and parking area. The 2 firms have been involved in the conceptual development plans, which incorporate formalizing parking and paved area access road in Waveney adjacent to the water tanks. The area is currently disturbed for paths and haphazard parking, and the plan will formalize and contain the area while providing an efficient layout of approximately 90 parking spaces. To that end, we recommend that the contract be awarded to Richter and Segan for $23,600 plus $3,540 contingency, totaling $27,140, and McCord Engineering Associates for $14,600 plus $2,190 contingency, totaling $16,790, in order for both firms to prepare the final plans and construction documents for the Waveney Water Tower access road and parking area, and the funds are available.
Questions for Maria?
So exactly where is this? Maria,
So
you were
this,
talking about the road, the dirt road that leads
correct.
up to,
It's east of the existing water tanks.
right?
So it is north of the eastern ball field.
Like
Right.
this,
Okay.
this is the
That
connect,
area is just, oh, sorry. Go ahead, Kevin.
this is the connection between the high school and the Waveney. They had gone through the various bodies as a proposal,
Right.
and we really got slowed down because of COVID. And the superintendent's all in favor of getting this done, so they have a better access plan for the high school for teachers and kids, and especially with COVID coming. So, you know, the parking lot's been in the plan for a long time. The Tiger last year had the approval of Parks and Rec and the superintendent to proceed, but we just haven't gotten to the point of.
Yeah, I mean, this has been, it's amazing that it's taken this, as a town, this long to accomplish this. So we're going to pick up 90 spots? Maria?
Yes, approximately 90 spots, yes.
In
Wow.
total. Well, this is also part of the, you know, the aquarium is taking down the old water
Right.
tower, and that'll come down hopefully by October, November. And we're going to get some land back. So, you know, we're looking to improve that area in general.
How much land will we get back as a result of the tower coming down?
Not that much, but it's our land, so it's nice to get it back.
It's a small piece. It's a portion of the existing footprint of the water tank, and then it leads out to the south to the existing fence line.
It could be more usable, but they've got an electric utility box there that
Right.
could be moved in the future. But for now, it'll give us the ability to just make the appearance of the area bigger, and they don't need all that property for the big water tank.
Right.
They still have the right to access it. So.
Right. We still have to provide an easement and an access agreement to them. So they still have to go over the existing driveway, but we'll own everything back to the revised fence line.
That's great.
So I move we approve this contract with Richter and Season and McCord Engineering for design services totaling, what'd you say, $27,000?
$27,140 for Richter and Segan and $16,790 for McCord Engineering.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor? That's unanimous, Kit? Okay.
Thank you.
Purchasing policy. So we already did the police department contract, right? So we purchasing policy, you both had the opportunity to talk to Lunda and Tiger. This has gone through a lot of review by the advisory committee and by we got a lot of good input from members. So I think we're finally ready to vote on this.
Kevin, and we also had, at the recommendation of the audit committee, they also requested that Joe Centofanti, our auditor, also take a look at it, and he did. And I do have an update on your tablets, just some items in red. He suggested that on the waiver for items that don't have a waiver, he suggested that we included a waiver form as a supporting document. So for those sole source or some of those things that I think may have been relevant in the conversation that Kit was having with Bill, just to include that as part of the policy. But that's an additional entity that also reviewed it and gave us feedback.
Okay.
Yeah, I had a couple of things that I had talked about when I had a very excellent meeting with Lunda. But for instance, in purchases from $1,000 to $10,000, that I think it should read that the departments must request bids. Even on, if someone comes to my house to paint my house, I get bids. And I think that we should not be forced to obtain the bids, but that we should must request bids.
This is for 10,000 and above, or 1 to 10,000?
Well, it doesn't have to be, let's say 5 to 10. And that in the 10 to 25 must request. And that even in the ones where it says that we require 3 formal quotes, I don't know how we're going to get 3 others, so it should be must request.
On the formal bids, when we advertise, we normally don't solicit bids from someone, and we get into a problem whereby we have to maintain a contractor list, and if we don't maintain that list or then notify the contractor, we could be faulted for it. So on the larger bids, we advertise and we'll allow the advertisement to do the solicitation.
For instance, it reads under $25,000 to $50,000 requires 3 formal quotes obtained by user department via email or written when possible. And you're not always going to be able to get 3.
That's the point. That's the point I made at our last meeting. I think the more quotes, the merrier. But there are situations where we're unable to get 2 quotes, but you still have to bid it out. You still have to get the work done. So the lawyer in me says this is a great policy to try and get your best efforts to try and get multiple quotes, but there just needs to be, I think, somewhere in here, an understanding that use best efforts, but if you can't get 3 quotes and get 2 quotes, it is what it is. With respect to kits, I note that purchases between 1,500 to 10,000 quotes are recommended, but not required for this threshold. Part of me agrees with Kit that, look, $5,000, $8,000 is a lot of money. If recommendation is good, it would be nice to, I think, or would be preferable to have a strong recommendation, if not a full requirement at that level.
Tiger, do you want to address that? I would think that would be cumbersome for you to operate under.
Well, yes. The reason that we went from the 5 to the 10 was for that specific reason, that we're not able to get anything. Things are costing a lot more than when we first initiated the policy.
Right.
As far as getting a quote for the work from 1,500 to 10,000, from a single vendor, we could do that. Getting it from multiple vendors, then we're back to square one again. Then why change? So
there's a difference between getting and requesting. That if it's okay to just request 1 bid, that's not competitive. And so I think it should be requesting multiple bids.
Well, again, we're back to the exact same thing as we're at $5,000. We only need the 1, and 5,000 and above, we need multiple. If we're not changing the dime from 5 to 10, then it's a cumbersome thing for the 5 to 10 range. That was the reason why we asked for the 10,000, and then above 10,000, we went to the multiples, because of the fact that we're looking at chasing a lot of work in the $5,000 to $10,000 range to multiple bidders.
And to be clear, one of the other major changes in this policy is moving the ball from $5,000 to $10,000, and with respect to unilateral decisions by the first selectman. In other words, as of today, if we have a $5,000 contract, $5,001 contract, that's subject to the entire Board of Selectmen approval, I believe.
That's correct.
After this policy is implemented, that number will go to 10,000. I'm okay with that because I get that we don't want things to be cumbersome. However, with respect to the number of quotes, I just think as a policy from a policy standpoint, even if it's, an $8,000 contract in that vicinity, that's still a lot of money. And so I think best efforts should be made. It should be policy, if not set in stone, to get those quotes, to get multiple quotes. But look, I think in the big picture, I think this is an excellent policy. I want to be clear. I read it again over the weekend. It's very, it's almost exhaustive in its requirements. I really commend Kevin, you, Lunda, Maria, all the folks who have been a part of this, Tiger. I think it's an excellent effort and really is something we've needed for a long time. So I don't want to, you know, dampen my ardor for the policy as a whole.
Well, thank you. The other thought is that even in the increase from the 5 to 10, if we go out and request a quote from someone and we feel that it's, you know, it's not the best number for us, we're going to continue to chase that number, you know, regardless if it's a requirement in the document or it's a, you know, must request or should request. It's a shall for us, as far as if we don't get the right number on the first go, we're going to go to the next guy until we get the right number, regardless of that.
I would still, as a member of this board and have been for a number of years, I would still like to see what contracts below $10,000 are being awarded and to whom.
That's fine.
And were there multiple bids? If we're gonna move the ball to 10,000, so that the first selectman has the unilateral right to just sign away, that's fine. I want transparency with respect to all contracts that this town is bid.
We have that transparency now, Nick. All contracts under 5 come to.
I understand. I just want that to continue, Kevin. But also, I think I just added something, and I also want to know, you know, whether that $8,950 contract, whether there were multiple bids, just for the sake of transparency.
I know, Tiger, can you operate with that? Because maybe it requires further discussion. This is a rather big last minute change for Tiger's.
Can I just add something?
They did Apple. Yeah.
I don't know how the other operates department. I think, you know, as Public Works and at least the building, at least what I do, we probably do the most purchasing because of our nature of our work. My big problem when I go out for stuff is getting people to come and give me quotes. That's why we had discussion moving up to 10. You know, the thing was, like, we can't get people out of bed for $5,000 these days, and to get them to come out and give multiple quotes on a $6,000 or $8,000 job, a lot of people don't want to do the government work. It's hard to get them to come out. That was one of the biggest problems. And the other problem is that we have a good pool of vendors that have been doing work for the town for many years and giving us good pricing. And, you know, people just won't come bid because they just feel like they just can't compete. And it's always a problem. And I know you're looking for Nick, and I understand that, and we can do that. It's just, it's a lot of work to try to find these people to come out to give us bids, and they don't.
I get that, which is the reason why I said earlier that this policy should incorporate the situation where you try and get multiple, you try and get 3 bids, but you can't get people to bid, and that's okay. I get that.
Okay.
So I mean, it's like one end to the other end. Look, whatever. It's fine. I think on the whole, it's a very good.
Right. And to Tiger's point too, is like, we kind of have an idea what some of these things should cost. If they come in and they're a little not looking right, we're not going to go with it. We're going to talk to other people too. We're not just going to arbitrarily say, oh, take the bid and just be happy with it. If we don't like the number and we have more questions, then we'll definitely get other quotes or other people involved.
We'd like that effort
do that
to
now.
be institutionalized. That the need to request bids, not necessarily receive them, but the need to go out and request them is important. And you won't honestly know if you've got something that's competitive unless you see what other people offer.
Well, that's not necessarily true. I agree with it in theory, but you know, we know what, if I got a number on my first go that was a very, very good number, it might necessarily be that, you know, and we know that based upon past history, based upon, you know, unit pricing that we've had for a decade and where we see the economy going, we would know. But we can certainly request additional ones, and to Nick's point, we'll let you know. As you know, if a contract comes to Kevin at $7,412, we're going to let Kevin know that we went out, we asked for multiples, received multiples and what they would be, and then that will be transmitted to the Board of Selectmen in that, in Tom's list as contracts under 10,000 now. But, you know, this $7,412 request or for contract approval actually had multiple requests in what they were. But that's not a hardship, and that's not a, you know, I think that's a prudent practice that I'm perfectly comfortable with.
Kevin, and this is not, I mean, I brought this up when I had my discussion with Tiger and with Lunda. This is not a surprise.
No, well, was it 10,000 to 25,000? You had said some, I forgot what the words were, but because we got into the shall and should. I mean, I think it was the should request multiple bids at 10,000 and above. You've lowered that. I'm fine with that. What was that? Must? I can't.
Must request.
At the 10 to 25. And that was fine. I said that was fine at the time, and I agree with it.
And I think it should be must request from 5,000 and above. I mean, it's just picking up the phone.
That's fine.
Yeah.
We'll pick up the phone.
It was a surprise to me. So if changes have been made, you know, I don't know what I'm even voting on at this point. I got red line markings on the things that were now pointed out to me. So I propose we defer vote on this till July 7th, so we can all get on the same page.
Okay, we can try to quantify what Kit and Nick are requesting and put it back forward, and then we'll bring it back forward on the next meeting. That's no problem.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move to the financial update from Lunda. Or would you rather do this on July 7th after we have for the close of June?
It would make more sense then, Kevin.
Okay,
But you do have the year-to-date on your tablets, but the discussion would be helpful after we close the year.
Yeah, it makes sense.
I mean, it won't be fully closed, but we'll have a better idea.
Yeah.
Okay, then we'll also defer in the financial update. Contracts is one contract, I think, under $5,000 on the tablets. And any questions about that?
So were there multiple bids?
Tiger, do you know what we're talking about?
No, sorry, I missed that.
Sorry, Tiger. I
That's
was.
This is the Pennington excavation for 941 Ponus for $4,300. This is a good example of, you know, small jobs that we have to get done, a lot of them, and, you know.
Right, we have several contractors that we go to for small projects, small drainage projects like this, Pennington being one of them. He supplies himself and his excavator, since we don't have an excavator. We have a backhoe, we don't have an excavator, and then we supplement his forces with our forces in it, and it's a very good partnership going forward. But we requested just the one from Pennington, knowing that he would be, in most Zachary's eyes, in my eyes, that he would be the perfect candidate to do this work.
And if you had asked for further bids, what would have happened?
He probably would have been the low, or everyone would have been right around the same number. We would have went to Hussey Construction and Hussey Brothers and probably Peter Lonnie and gotten pretty close to the exact same number.
I'm good.
I'm fine.
Okay, then that brings us to general matters. We've been getting a lot of emails.
Did you want to talk about masks, Kevin? Because we had started that discussion.
I'm not sure what there's to talk about with this body about masks, because, you know, the whole emergency operations management is under the Emergency Operations Center. So, you know, we're trying to do as much as we can to remind people to wear masks. We have good compliance. I was disappointed to see the high school parade without masks. That would have been a good learning exercise for people to wear masks, although a lot of the spectators had masks. So we just have to continue reminding people this pandemic is going to be with us all summer. I just received an email. We have a new positive case reported out of a hospital. Anybody who goes in for a procedure now of any kind, they're being tested. So based upon what's happening in other parts of the United States and the fact that the governor is looking to quarantine people coming into the state, we have to be vigilant. We have to be constantly reminding people. And when you're in crowded areas, especially downtown, people should be wearing masks. I don't know what more we can do. We're providing masks to all the merchants and the restaurants. And so it's not lack of masks, it's an attitude. And if anybody has any suggestions to the EOC as to how we further operate, they're welcome.
It's messy. Look, you've got a situation where you've got restaurants, open air restaurants, forget about indoors, but folks on the street, and we want people to come to New Canaan and eat and drink and be merry. So, but you're sitting at a table and you're not wearing a mask, and there's other tables around you and nobody's wearing a mask. And yet when you go into the establishment or into the area, you wear a mask, and then you take it off, and when you leave, you wear a mask. And so I get the fact that people are confused. I mean, it's kind of like you're either quarantined or you're not. I can't tell you how many people have come up to me and said, I don't get the mask thing. I mean, we can sit at the Roger Sherman or Gates or wherever, pick an establishment with friends, with family, maybe 6 at a table. Nobody's wearing a mask. The waiters are wearing a mask, obviously. And yet, if we're walking down Elm Street alone, are we supposed to, why should we wear a mask when on the other side of the street, you've got 30 people who are eating out, not wearing a mask? So I mean, I get it. It's confusing. I mean, it's, I don't know. I'm sympathetic to both sides of kind of the issue, the folks who think, everybody should wear a mask and maybe we shouldn't have the restaurants open. I mean, it's truly confusing, and even today, the method of transmission of this disease, you'll hear 15 different things. You can go online and pick whatever data you want to support your cause. You can find it. So I don't know. I mean, I know we can't be the mask police, and I think we should encourage everyone to wear masks. But it's difficult. I think and you're right. The parade, the high school graduation parade, there were very few masks, whether it was the kids or the parents or the spectators.
Well, I just want to say that when I am driving around downtown or walking around downtown, I see lots of groups of people, 0 masks.
Right.
And I do not think it would be out of the realm to have somebody walking around saying, would you please put a mask on? Would you please put a mask on? And do it routinely, rather than sporadic signs or sporadic reminders.
Right. I mean, I'm not sure I agree. I don't know, Kit. I really, this is such a frustrating issue because the medical advice is kind of all over the place. I think on balance, if everyone wore a mask, we'd all be better off based upon the data that I've seen. But it's really tough to have restaurants be open and people eating and dining and having fun for a change, and nobody's wearing a mask. I mean, and I don't know whether it's 6 feet or 20 feet or 15 feet. I don't think as a town, we should be in the business of being mask police, policemen. I just think, I don't think our citizens are ready for that. But I don't know, if we get another spike, we all go back indoors and no more restaurants, no more social engagement.
But Nick, policing would imply put your mask on or else, versus saying verbally, please put your mask on. And I don't think that's policing.
Well, I mean, I don't want to get into it.
Okay.
I mean, what does policing mean? I mean, okay, put your mask on. No, I'm not going to do it. Okay, what's the next step? I I mean, is there a ticket? Do you go to jail? I mean, you go to mask special section of the police department for, you know, folks who don't wear a mask. It's just a difficult issue, and I'm not suggesting a solution. Unfortunately, I wish I had one. I just think, you know, I get these emails, pro and con masks. We all do, and I don't know, Kevin. What do you think? I mean, what?
I think what I've said, wear masks. When I go down Elm Street, I'm wearing a mask. And, but I don't think anybody or any surrounding town is in the business of having people out as town employees telling people to wear masks.
Right.
If we have a spike, I think we may get to that. But so far, you know, at least I think people are deriving comfort from the fact that our testing is showing there's very little of the virus in New Canaan. But that could change tomorrow with somebody coming back from Florida or someplace, and that's why, quite honestly, we need this this new database outcall system, so we know how to contact people, because the tracing is going to be very important. That's what the health department does, and we're not going to rely upon the state's tracing system with people who are college kids. It doesn't make a lot of sense to us. That makes sense, and so we're going to protect New Canaan ourselves. And but we'll be guided by what kind of facts are on the ground.
So to be clear, everyone should be wearing a mask in town. But once you enter a restaurant, eating establishment, and you sit down at a table, you can take your mask off.
That's the governor's orders. We have to follow the governor's orders.
And if you go to the restroom, you put the mask back on.
I don't think there's, you know, the restaurants are not confused about that, and they're enforcing that when people come inside.
But my point is just, it's confusing to people where you have all these restaurants outdoors and nobody's wearing a mask. And then if you're just walking down the street by yourself, you have to wear a mask. I do that. I do wear a mask when to be clear, when I'm downtown and I'm not sitting, eating lunch or eating dinner. I'm just saying it is confusing to our citizens, our townspeople. And it's because it's mixed messaging. And one thing Handler was good at was understanding that mixed messaging can be a bad thing.
I don't think our message is mixed at all, Nick. I mean,
no, I'm not saying it's our message. I think it's the governor's message. Look, I'm sorry. It doesn't make a hell of a lot of sense. People tell me that all the other like, it doesn't make any sense. Like, I walk from my car to the restaurant, I wear a mask, I don't see anybody. I sit down at a table with 4 other people, and there's table next to me, nobody's wearing a mask. That's my point.
Because you can't eat with a mask on. So I mean, you know.
I know. Well, you could. I mean, theoretically, you could say wear a mask and then take a bite, chew, put the mask back on. I'm saying, if Kevin, if you can't see some of the absurdity of this, I mean, it just, look, I'm not saying I have a solution. And yes, I agree. Everyone should wear a mask in town. I'm just saying, for these people who come up to me saying, this is crazy. But you know what? We live in a crazy world. It is what it is. So everyone wear a mask.
I have a couple of general items, if I could. One, I thought we were going to vote on the YMCA in Kiwanis. And of course, it's not on the agenda.
We were going
to. The town council voted on it, but I thought it was coming back to us.
We were going
I want to say, I don't understand how this agreement with the YMCA and Kiwanis came about without public hearings or presentations to the Parks and Recreation Commission. In my opinion, private agreements with outside entities should not keep taxpayers from the use of a town park and a playground. I love the YMCA, it's a great organization, but there is something that strikes me as wrong with this picture. This should have been a better process.
Kit, we're operating under emergency orders, right? Both at the state and the local level. You know, these things don't have the time to go to commissions that, and the whole point is the EOC is making a lot of decisions. Some are not very popular, but we have to make these decisions. we were going to vote last week on recommending it to the town council. The town council approved it. So
It was split. It was 6-6.
like a lot of things in town, there's a lot of a lot of 50-50 issues, but a lot of these issues are tough. You know, Wilton is not opening their pond at all for the summer. That's a bigger decision than to, you know, give you part-time access to something that in the circumstances, we're trying to accommodate as many people as possible.
Well, it feels a little bit like it's favoritism to the Y. And as I say, it's a great organization, but I resist taxpayers not having access to town assets. It's my feeling. I didn't get to vote, but that's my feeling.
It's in an emergency. I think you already made clear last week how you would vote, so it's.
And the other thing I would like to say is that we as the Board of Selectmen received a petition that was signed by over 1,800 residents requesting the reinstatement of Mike Handler as Director of the Office of Emergency Management. And while only Kevin had the power to remove Mike Handler, and I understand that this is a fait accompli, I believe that the town owes Mike a huge thank you for the years of service that he volunteered to our community. Mike's was a voice we heard over the years during times of emergency, and he diligently and clearly and eloquently kept us informed and calm. In my opinion, New Canaan should be celebrating the years of volunteer work that Mike gifted our town with and for his dedication to our well-being. And whatever the misunderstanding that caused this event, it should not keep the town from acknowledging Mike Handler's long and effective volunteer service to New Canaan. I don't think he's been thanked. That's all I have.
Yeah, there's a lot there. On Kiwanis, I think the way we left it before pre-COVID was that we were going to reduce the budget, Kevin and Kit, but give, because I think the budget was 90,000. Is that right?
They took it from 90,000 down to 55,000.
Yeah, so we reduced it.
Reduced hours.
But we were going to support Bill Capps. There were some ideas that Bill and Steve had to rejuvenate and reinvigorate Kiwanis, which I was supportive of for a year, for, you know, give them one more year. Was that, am I remembering that correctly?
But that's all pre-COVID. I mean, pre-COVID
right.
Changed everything.
Right.
I mean, at the time we made this decision, we didn't think Waveney Pool was going to be opening either. So, that people
look, I mean, the usage of Kiwanis has always been, I mean, it's just been underutilized for years and years. And I mean, I think at least having the Y there is helpful. To be clear, for those who want an option, they can use the pool. And if there's a monetary issue, a financial impairment issue, the town will address that, correct? So because the pool's more expensive.
$300 for a family, and we give scholarships for people in need. So I think we you know, keep in mind that the Kiwanis could not be used by the camps that traditionally used it, either the town camps or the daycare center. So the attendance was already sharply curtailed by COVID.
Right.
And it's available on weekends. We have lifeguards on weekends, and Steve Banco, actually the town council made a point that they'd like to see it open in the evenings, and Steve Banco has the money and the authority to provide lifeguards in the evening, as Steve Carl mentioned, but we're not going to have people sitting there if there's no attendance.
Right. I have several comments, excuse me, with respect to Mike Handler. And forgive me if I read this, but I'm going to read it. I've had the pleasure of working with Mike for over a dozen years, both in my former capacity as chairman of the Board of Education and in my position now as selectman. He and I have ridden out ice storms, blizzards, and hurricanes that befell our community, culminating in this horrible pandemic that has now swept the world. Mike Handler has been a great asset to the town of New Canaan and has been an outstanding director of emergency management, and I would like to personally thank him for his long service. The use of Facebook during storms to convey and to collect pertinent real-time safety information is just one example of his wisdom and his innovative spirit. That's why I supported Mike's recent run for governor, serving as a committed delegate to his candidacy at the Republican State Convention and co-hosting a fundraiser for him. Yes, I'm uncomfortable with the circumstances surrounding Mike's resignation, as many of us are. Our first selectman is on the record as saying that it wasn't policy differences, but rather other interpersonal issues that prompted the decision. Having spoken with both individuals on multiple occasions, I believe that to be the case. What's unfortunate is that this most recent development clouds what has been a truly remarkable success story. Our community has weathered this pandemic admirably. We've turned a town that was a hotspot less than 3 months ago into an oasis of safety. We were one of the first towns in Connecticut to declare a state of emergency. We acted early in closing downtown businesses, parks, and playing fields. We socially distanced, quarantined in place when necessary, and learned not only how to wear masks, but how to make them. We've now completed nearly 2,000 COVID-19 tests in town with the Stanford Hospital testing program, and the number of positive results have been almost non-existent, strongly suggesting that the lifestyle changes we have undertaken have worked. Ultimately, this New Canaan success story was not the work of any one person or 2 or 3 people for that matter. It was the product of an entire town coming together in unison in the face of untold adversity to fight this deadly disease. And for that, we should be forever proud.
I've already made my statement about the circumstances. Mike knows why he resigned, and I think Nick knows why he resigned. So I think, and I did thank Mike for his service. So other than that, do you want to talk about the cell tower, or do you want to wait? The hearing for the cell tower is July 9th. We have a meeting on July 7th. There's nothing for this body to do as a body, but I'm going to testify at the hearing on July 9th. Some of the emails are mischaracterizing things. I think if you focus on what the, keep in mind, Homeland Towers is the firm that this board selected to solve the cell service problem in New Canaan. They're not an enemy, so I think if you want to testify on July 9th, you're welcome to. But otherwise, I'm not sure we need to talk about it today. We can talk about it July 7th if you want to talk about it further. Are you familiar with the details of the small disagreements that remain on the P&Z side?
I spoke with John Goodwin yesterday, had a good conversation with him. And again, I'm in favor of cell towers wherever we can get them, because, and COVID-19 has re-emphasized the need for cell towers. We've had difficulties contacting seniors in remote, in parts of town. And it just, you know, the pandemic makes it even more urgent that we get cell towers up, and I'm supportive of that particular site, but I am cognizant of the concerns of the neighbors, and our Planning and Zoning Commission have undertaken to make certain requirements, or I guess in this, it's not requirements, because the Siting Council, as I said last week, can do whatever it wants, pretty much, and supersede P&Z rules and regulations. But I think I support our P&Z. Those folks work as hard as anybody in town. Well, maybe not the health department, but it's a almost thankless job, and I support their position on these issues.
Anything further, Kit?
No, I think that it would be very good to have the tower comply with our planning and zoning suggestions, if that's what they are. I think it would be respectful.
Devil's in the details, and I think there's relatively minor disagreements at this point. So
I don't disagree with that, Kevin. I think, having talked to John, I think he's, I don't think this is earth shattering.
I have not talked to John, but I will.
He's a Democrat, Yeah.
I know.
but the point again, I would emphasize again, this body selected Homeland Towers to solve our cell service problem. So I just think we need to be cognizant that Homeland Towers is doing what we asked them to do. And I did ask them if they would float a balloon. They don't think it's necessary. They've already done a test, and the siting council gets to decide what process they're going to use. And I would still encourage them to float a balloon. It doesn't cost a lot of money, and it's not, but I think it would prove to people how inobtrusive this 90-foot tower is going to be in a standard.
Well, I mean, it is interesting that we're paying Homeland Towers, right? They work for us, right?
Actually, we're not paying them. But they're our
Well,
partner.
but they're not doing this for free.
They're a partner. Well, but they're not getting compensated. We selected them through an RFP as our partner to improve cell service.
Okay, yeah, we're not paying them directly, but there's a financial component, excuse me, to their participation. They wouldn't do this for the hell of it, right?
Well, but again, the town's not paying them, but we did select them as our partner.
But they're going to make money because they're our partner.
The other thing is, I mean, it's, people who are trying to make the argument we don't need cell service in that part of town. When you live on a peak and there's a cell tower 3 miles away in Vista, that is not cell service for the people all around the surrounding area. Everybody doesn't live on the peak. And so for people to believe that AT&T and Homeland Towers and Verizon and T-Mobile, when they come along, are going to spend money on something they don't need is just fuzzy thinking. The cell carriers definitely want to serve their customers, and New Canaan needs modern cell service. So
I strongly agree with the proposition that we need more towers in New Canaan. Absolutely.
And we're soon to have another one on the horizon. There's this is not picking out one neighborhood. There's going to be other neighborhoods that we're going to come back and put forth plans. We have to do this, and it's something that otherwise we don't have a modern town. So,
right.
Other than that, do you want to talk about anything further?
Nothing here.
Okay, I move we adjourn at 10 o'clock.
Second.
All in favor? Anybody still there? Everyone froze, or what happened, Tom? I think we adjourned. If anybody can hear us.
Looks all right here.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Everyone froze on my screen.
Oh, not here.
So are we stand adjourned?
Yeah.
Yeah, Nick already dropped off.
Nick's off already. We're adjourned.
Okay. Thank you all.
Thank you.